This is the podcast in the rough. Tune in every Friday for new, exciting, adventurous episodes. Welcome back to the podcast of Rough. This is episode 171, and today we're going to be talking about high-stakes creativity, behind the scenes with Tony Robbins. I had the opportunity to work with him over the course of the pandemic, helping his company, along with other partner companies and partner entrepreneurs, pivot as well. Quite an experience. Definitely a pivotal point in my career, and I want to talk about it. I want to dive into it. It's not something I've been able to talk about over the course of the past couple of years, but it's time to talk about it. And I want to share some of it with you so that you can pull something from it and learn, where to go in your career. If you have a direction and you have goals, like what is your manifesto, right? Like where are you trying to go with things? And if the opportunities present themselves, are you still going to take them? Tony Robbins was never a goal. Tony Robbins was also, when I look back, it felt more to the left of me, right? Like my vision, I'm going straight. Here's my path. During the pandemic, I'm having to figure out where I'm going to pivot. And this just happened to be an opportunity that presented itself. And as much as I want to say it was a pivot, I would say it's a pivot. It wasn't technically where like, oh, my career shifts and this is the direction I'm going and there's a new line. It was a pivot. It was a pivot to do the thing and then a pivot to go back to the other thing. So it was a good thing that happened. I was very grateful for it. And a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity, a lot of good things came from it as well. But also a lot of bad things, a lot of hard things, a lot of learning, a lot of disappointment, a lot of upset. We're going to talk about it. So just to recap, last week, episode 170, I talked about, my creative pivots that shaped my earlier career before all of this that I'm going to talk about today. And I shared some of the lessons from those experiences. And this week, I really want to dive into the more intense and rewarding chapters of my journey, my career here. And I wouldn't say this is like the peak, like Tony Robbins wasn't the peak, but it was one heck of an opportunity. And it did teach me a lot. And to kind of start this off, first of all, go back to 170 if you haven't listened to it and really dive into that because I shared some really good stuff that I think you can, I just know if you apply a lot of it, you'll create the vehicle you need. Talk about this vehicle and the vehicle to get you where you want to go. So it is true what they say. You don't really want to meet your mentors, or the people that you look up to sometimes. In this case, it is true for me. And it's very disappointing. And so I want to talk to you about, the Tony Robbins and the virtual events and the virtual productions, the expansion of my knowledge, putting my, my mastery and all my skill sets to the test. It was a time where I was given a new title that I didn't even know I really could harness and own, and in which I did. And that was probably a really good thing too, to pivot. And I want to talk about like where it started, how it happened, and how it unfolded, and hopefully give you some positive takeaway from this that you can learn. And this is just my experience. So let's talk about the high stakes challenges. There was a lot of high stakes challenges with Tony and his team. And I don't want to even mention the other entrepreneur company and team that I was working with, but a partner. I was 50-50 with both. Like I was like right in the middle growing this thing. The pandemic hits, it shifts. All my clients, they basically pause. Some go under, some take a break, some bail out completely. And so for 90 days when the pandemic hit, for 90 days, I didn't have work. I didn't do anything. And looking back, it was actually a really interesting time because it allowed me to really think of things and evaluate what I was doing. And, in the good sense, it was time with family. It was a strange time to be around, to be alive, right? To be in business, right? And so, I remember spending the first 90 days only in my house, in my yard. Yeah, I was that person, right? I was so confused at what was going on. I said, well, maybe I just don't go out, right? And yes, it was coming into summer months. So, you figure I went outside to do some yard work. I did a lot of yard work around my house, but I didn't leave my property. I stayed inside. And then eventually, yes, I started to go out and take walks. And what got me out was I was tuned in. I've always been tuned into Tony Robbins and all his stuff. Like way back in the day, I used to see this crazy guy in infomercials. And why it was important to me is because I would look at this guy, right? And it's all his energy. I'm like, I want that. I want to, whatever that is, And I was never really interested in like being a life coach or anything like that, but I was taking the tools that he was talking about back then and finding ways to apply them to my life and to my business. And that's what ultimately kind of helped the foundation for how I was going to approach things, besides the fact that my own credit of being creative and the concept of adding massive value is really what I'm getting at. Like Tony Robbins always talked about adding massive value. That was my thing. Like, okay, so my three mentors on my come up, if you will, was Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer, and Tony Robbins. I felt like that was a great trio of mentorship. You know, Wayne Dyer helped me with personal focus and manifestation, and that led into Deepak Chopra, which grounded me a little bit more into manifestation and spirituality and wisdom. And then there's Tony, which was the business, which kind of combined a little bit of everything: business, the mentorship, the manifestation, the rituals, routines, the constantly doing the same thing to break through and then changing it and getting your edge and adding massive value. And so I applied all that into my personal goals. And I bring this up because this is very important of why I got this opportunity. During the pandemic, I noticed that he was doing these challenges. Well, it was actually the first challenge. It was a big challenge, and it was a virtual challenge. And the first virtual challenge was I think it was like a 3-day event. I got involved through Facebook group and a community. And I just kind of was there as a participant. He was just giving away great advice and met a lot of people. And that kind of got me out of my comfort zone to go outside and take a walk and start thinking. And I sent in a video to the group like, hi, this is, everyone was doing this, like, state who you are and what you're doing and what you want to do and what's going on in your life. And at the time, ZT Films kind of was I don't know what we're doing. We're not filming right now, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was like, well, what am I going to do for money too? Because I had a savings and I was doing very well before that. I was actually doing exceptionally well before that. And I think if the pandemic didn't hit, who knows, it would have skyrocketed even more and faster than what it is now. And so during the event, they were talking about like a date with destiny, and I wanted to get a coach, and I figured this would be a good time to do that. And then when I realized that it's going to be a little bit more time in this pandemic, I was like, all right, let me focus to do some other stuff. And I started getting calls from all types of businesses and brands that I used to work with. And they said, hey, you were talking about live streaming. You're talking about doing these virtual events. Can you set them up? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So, these are very small too. Like I would just advise them, because remember, I wasn't leaving the house. So I'd advise them over Zoom, like, get this camera, set it up, use this software, use like something like OBS. And like, if you want a streamcast thing, or, there's all types of different equipment that you can use depending on your budget. And some were big, some were small. Some of these were churches, some of these were nonprofits. And so I got really busy with that. And so I was like just helping all these live streams. At the same time, I was like, you know what, let me do it for myself. And so I started launching some courses, and I started doing live streams, and it was a good time. I mean, was it perfect? No, it was a mess. Like the live streams were, sometimes they didn't work, but I started creating these really significant menus, for like, I was all excited, obsessed about, if you're a participant and you log into the live stream, what are you seeing before we actually go live, right? That's what I was obsessed over. So it was like an intro menu that would play some really exciting music to pump you up, and it would give some facts, or it would show the two talking heads or information about the event. And I built these little screens that would like really look good with the animation and just kind of get you warmed up, like you're waiting for the big event. And then it would have a countdown, and then we would position a speaker to come out and like introduce, the event and what we're going to do, and like get everyone more hyped. So it was our hype, man or woman, And I would advise these companies to start doing this stuff. And I had a system and a flow for this. And it's something that I just kind of developed over, what I've been watching all types of people doing and putting it together, and means that this works. And so I inquired about a Tony Robbins coach, and I decided not to move forward. And I was inquiring about, a big event. And I didn't move forward because I was like, well, it's a pandemic. We're not going to do this. And all of a sudden it was an email. Actually, it was a DM on my Instagram. I got a DM on my Instagram from a partner of Tony's. His company reached out, and we started talking back and forth. And that led into dealing directly with his main partner. And that was like, hey, we're looking for individuals to help us grow this thing. You seem to be someone of the skill set. So you figure all my mastery and my skills and the things I've been doing have led up to this moment. And it's like, this is a good time for me to pivot. So I said, really? Like at first I was like, this is cool. But then I was like, wait a minute, like this can't be real. Like you're telling me like Tony Robbins' team, Tony was seeking me. And And they're like, yeah. And I find out, I can't share too much, but basically what it was is like the positioning was, create this thing. And if you're really good at it and it works, then we'll move you to the next level of, what we really need. And I was like, let's give it a shot. And so, they gave me a timeline, which I blew that out of the water because it was like, here's a couple weeks to do it. And I did it in a night, 24 hours. It was like, boom, boom, boom. And they were like, wow, they're just so blown away by like, what I did. And they're like, how do you like live and speak the same way as Tony? I'm like, little do they know that I've been obsessing over his content for years. And it was kind of just a thing for me. And I was like, this is great. And at the same time, I was like, well, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to have the opportunity to really make a difference in this industry, then yes, let's go. Because remember, like my career has moved and worked across industries. I'm like, this is just another one of those industries that I can dip into and maybe who knows what I could do here. And then it became real because it was like, Tony was like, hey, I need you, blah, 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 blah. And his partner was like, we need to do this, this, and this. And it was really, really exciting because, I get put in this position where I'm head of productions and I'm the creative strategist. I'm Tony Robbins' creative strategist and another business partner's creative strategist. It's a new position in the company. It's a new title for me, but I understood the role of what creative strategist is. I'm like, this is basically what I do. And because I'm not just a video guy, like I'd create all this. And so I was like, yes, let's go. And it was like, there was so much stuff to get done, but I focused mainly on just adding massive value through the creative ideas that could be applied to live streaming and virtual events and big screens, and like how do we network and how do we get more people to come in the Facebook groups and then how do we social proof and how do I create long lasting videos and ads and testimonials and like build this whole thing that turns into a big event, that turns into a big course, that turns into a big selling entrepreneurship with a lot of moving parts, a lot of people. And I was right there in the middle of it at the top. Like anything that was quality it ended on my desk, right? Like the buck stopped with me, as one of them said. Like if you mess this up, the buck stops with you. Okay. So like that's the high stakes. I had, every single day my job was on the line, but I was like, who cares, right? Like I'm going to do my all. This is what you brought me on to do, is to take big chances, big risks, pitch the idea. And if it's not good enough, it doesn't work, then yeah, I'm out. I did my best, but I'm not going to, go in mediocre or scared or afraid or not my full potential. And I said, yes, I'm going to do that. And of course there was politics in the company, which was total BS. There's a lot of, like run the gauntlet type of stuff and partner you with this person and against this person and that person. And there's a lot of just nonsense and fluff. And I'm like, listen, I'm trying to work here. I'm trying to get you results. And I would get you results, more results than anybody else, no matter what they threw at me. Like they constantly would throw at me impossible tasks. Like there's no way he's going to be able to do this. And boom, I would run the ball and score a touchdown or throw a Hail Mary. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I broke through so many times. And one of the really the high stakes for me is I remember like there was this video ad that had to get done. And, obviously I'm overseeing the production team and I'm creating, the key video or pushing some tasks off to other members and they would bring it back to me. And I'm like, okay, this works. Let's change this. And I noticed though there was all these things, what would rob my creativity, rob my energy of this is that I would create something and then, the team would like rip it apart and change things and bring it back to me. I'm like, no, it was perfect how it was. Like we don't need to change stuff, right? And I'd given other people the same encouragement, like looking at their stuff like, okay, we can tweak this, but you've really got it here because you have something unique. You see something that we don't. And so like I was pushing against that and then it was just like the no breaks. Like there was no break. There was no downtime. It was go, go, go. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And you think to yourself, like, how can you do this? Like when you go into something like this, you're not aware of like, you're running a gauntlet. You're not aware that you're in a sprint and no one's told you when the sprint stops, So you're just like, well, I'm just going to keep going. But you don't realize that they're trying to burn you out. They're trying to get everything from you right now. And they promise all this stuff. And that's what it was with the Tony situation, the Tony opportunity and a situation. It was both. But I remember this one time, Tony was flying from Florida to Arizona. His flight wasn't that long. The team made a last minute change And it wasn't a change because we wanted to, it's because someone messed up. Another high up messed up in something that I had said, knowing on the Tony side of things, like this image of Tony, it was just basically an image of Tony. This image of Tony looks fine. It looks great. We're going to run this. And then I pass it off and it's supposed to go out now, right? Well, someone else that sits also on the left and right wanted to butt heads and decided to change it without consulting with me. And if they did, they would have understood why we don't make the shift. But since they've been in the company longer, they know more, right? And that's my job as a strategist, is to convince the people that will tell me, no all the time, this was a good or not a good idea. And so they went ahead and made this decision. And that decision cost a lot of money to the company because we ran all these ads, we ran all this stuff, and found out that, no, that's not what Tony wants. That's not approved for Tony. And I could have told you that, right? Because a lot of people didn't know my position in the company, didn't know who I speak to directly. So I'm like, why would you do that? So we had to make a shift and tear everything back down and spend more money and like get the team to scramble. And here I was with this task of, you got to redo this whole video. It might not sound like much, but the images have to change. And here's Tony on this flight. And when he touches down, he goes right off the plane, right in the vehicle, right over to the location, walks right in, does his segment, and then walks back out. The deadline was that I didn't have enough time to really get this done, because what he's thinking is he's going to show up, walk out. Here's Tony. He's going to pitch his things and then going to say, all right, now check out this video or this offer or this whatever it is. I can't get too much detail. And that was the video that needed to be done. And so it came down to the wire, literally 30 minutes until that exact moment would unfold. I'm rendering the final result of the video. I'm like, listen, this can't go through anybody else's check. It's got to be my check only. And as long as I pay attention to my notes and put my creativity into this should work. And it's everything that the team and the company wants, and it's got everyone in it. And it's good. And I made sure that it didn't go through anybody else's hands. I handed it right off to the person that's going to put it right into the system, and it's ready to go. And I think it was like 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes is very important because they need time to be able to run this video, cue it up, put it in the spot, get it ready for live, and then boom. And we did it. And it was so amazing that it worked. And it was so awesome because when Tony came out and did the event, and I'm watching this, and then he makes comments about like, wow, what a wonderful story. This is beautiful. And like, we're talking about the testimonials and people's stories. And it made me feel really good because it was like, I did my thing, right? Like that's, if people would just listen to me in the company, that's what you would get all the time. But it gets misconstrued, it gets chopped up, it gets messed up because it doesn't end with me, right? It doesn't, you don't let me allow it to pass on, which is how it was supposed to be in the chain of command. But there was this one person they put in charge, and they always do that. They want to put something there and make sure you don't become a pillar, that you can't be, sustainable all the time. It's like, we got to keep you in check. And it's like, if you stop playing those stupid games and let someone like me go in there and other people that were just as valuable do their thing, you would have an amazing opportunity and way more. You think you're making millions, you way more, right? But no, under Tony, there's a lot of people that have positioned themselves in the sand, if you will, and they don't want their finances to be messed with, their position to be messed with. They love where they're at, and it's total BS. And that's what I learned the most, unfortunately, about working with these big companies, these big celebrity entrepreneurs, is that no matter how close you are with the entrepreneur, the talking head, the company that the foundation that's built around to keep his business running, he or she, it's full of snakes. It's full of there's some great people, but there's a lot of political crap going on in there. And people find a way, right? It's like, it's just unreal. And so like, that's what was killing the creativity. And I remember this one time I did a testimonial, and Tony left a message on my phone, and it was,
listen, I got to the site today and looked through, watched the video. So I'm totally in. I think I'm filming some stuff on Monday. If you need it by Monday, I can do it. If you need it later, of course, I'll do it later. Let me know the timeline on this, and I'll go get it done. Okay? Love you, brother. And so excited about this. I'm so excited about people being helped with this. It's just gorgeous.
I obsessed over what does this testimonial, this set of testimonials, what is the purpose of it? And at first, the purpose is to pull emotion from the viewer and to get them to relate and tell the hero's journey. And it was also to then lock it in to say that, if you do this, if you fall through, you can say the same thing or have your own hero's journey, a similar experience. And it was like, how can I get that experience? And once you get the edit right, once you get the testimonials right, then I was like, how do you pull that heartstring? Like, what goes with this? And that's when I was like, let me find the right music. And what was nice is, the biggest thing I could say was amazing was in the Tony Robbins industry world, right? Like, our budgets were amazing. Like, we can do the things. Like, it was to the point where, like, I remember obsessed for months how this logo would look. Like, I wanted the logo to, like, have all these little orbs and, like, animation, and I would sketch it out. I'm like, I want this, but I'm like, it was just outside of what I'm able to do, creativity, right? Like, I didn't know how to get that to go. This is way more animation than I was capable of understanding in a short amount of time. Like, if I spent months, I could figure it out, yes. But what's so nice with the budget, I was like, I could find the best of the best in the world. So we did that. We put that through the network and we said, he's looking for a specific animator to do this thing. And it didn't matter what it cost. We just wanted the best because these were trying times. It's the middle of the pandemic. Like, we're not just playing, the game here. We're trying to break through. We've been shut down in areas and Tony's industry wasn't allowed to do this and that. And, it was very hard and we had to reach the people and we wanted to break through all the craziness of the pandemic and all the fear and, like, show people that there's still hope and there's still purpose and there's still a mission and you're here to do something. And that was the goal. So, we weren't just, like I said, we weren't playing it basic. We had high stakes, but there was also no room for error trying to get these events to go and trying to get it to go because the world was upside down. It was in chaos. And here I was, a part of what I called the dream team. Yes, we butt heads. Yes, we ran into each other. Yes, we stepped on each other sometimes. Yes, we pushed too hard, right? At the end of the day, though, when we get these victories, or we would see the event unfold, and it was the end of the event, and we ran our gauntlet, if you will, and we did that sprint, we might have had a little bit of a moment there that we could take maybe not a break, but we could take a breath, and we could be like, we did it. And then it was back to the grind, right? And that's when I developed these things called gold buckets. It had to do with social proofing. It had to do with creating legendary content, legacy content. It had to do with creating next level stuff that was beyond what was happening now, like predictions of where the industry could go and what kind of direction we could take this content and how to future proof it. And so I started creating these gold buckets. And there were 6 of them, and I started nailing through these buckets. But it was brutal. It was brutal because people didn't give me the space. And I would tell them, listen, I'm the creative. You got to give me the time. It doesn't happen on your time. It happens on mine. And the only thing I will say that out of all of that, in that realm of that group of individuals, those entrepreneurs, at least they didn't let me live by the clock. Because that's something I don't do. I had later on when entrepreneurs would come for me, right? Because that's what Tony said. They're going to come for you now, right? Like, now the word's out. Now people are going to want what you offer, and you just got to know how to navigate those waters. And I found out, right? And there's some people that are like, oh, we want you by the time clock. Well, I'm not exchanging my time for money. It's my skill, my talent, my knowledge for money. So you don't get to put me under a clock. Creatives don't work that way. We have a deadline, yes, but it might ride the deadline, it might be before the deadline. And Tony's team understood that, but we always made it happen, right? Let me breathe a little bit. Let me go take a walk for a few hours, come back. Bam, there's the idea. It wasn't like, hey, here's the idea. You got to stay behind this cubicle, behind this desk, whatever. No, it didn't happen that way. But these high stakes was too stressful on me because, yes, it allowed me to be creative, allowed me to create videos that were like next level. Now, listen, was it a great experience? Absolutely. It was a cool pivotal point in my career. But did it teach me a lot? Yes. Did it hurt? Yes. Did it leave me jaded? Absolutely. Did it burn the bridge? 100%. And entrepreneurs that came later, right, also took advantage of me. We want more. Okay. And then I started to experience what burnout was. Like, I would say I got toasty with Tony, right? But I got burnt out with the entrepreneurs that came later because they didn't really care, right? Like, they were just trying to get something quick and move on so they can blow up. They weren't trying to have me a part of the team. They weren't trying to have me stay. And I didn't realize that. And this whole time, where's ZT Films? It's on the back burner. I walked away. Like, that was one of the biggest things that was a problem is, like, when I got with Tony's team. Well, okay, the partner team was like, hey, you can't be both places. You got to be here or there. So you got to shut down your company. Thank goodness I didn't shut down ZT Films. I just backed away. I didn't do any productions. And I wasn't allowed to do any productions with anybody else during this time. And I was like, well, but that's that's where the pay grade comes in. But looking back, if I had the opportunity to do it again, it would change a lot of things. Like, no, absolutely not. No NDA. Absolutely not. And no, I'm not going to just be exclusive to you. It's a great opportunity, but my wings spread further than that. I got more creativity for other people. And if you put me in one spot and I'm with one person, you're going to suck me dry. You're going to make me mundane. And I'm a creative. I have to get ideas by other projects. When I work on one project over here, that might give me a better idea for this and make it different and unique, but not the same. And it's because I'm bouncing back and forth. So those are the things that I would say that are really, really important to do. And one of the other things is like when you're with a team, really just taking care of everybody. You know, we did meetings, but they were very quick, right? When I left that and went to other entrepreneurs, they thought meetings was the thing. We're going to spend hours on meetings all day. Like that burned me out too. I was like, all day I'm just in meetings. I'm like, this is stupid. We're not getting anywhere. And then that shifted into like, oh, people were selling me, basically. They were selling like, here's the strategist, and they were getting entrepreneurs to be in a meeting with me. And I realized that, yeah, they're paying me big money, but that person I'm talking to is paying even bigger to the agency that brought me in. I was like, how did I end up here? And I was like, that's not good. That's not where I want to be. Even though the pay was amazing, but I'm like, no, why? Who's this middle guy? I could do this without you. Get rid of the agency. Deal directly with me. Get rid of all this fluff. Like, they're not doing anything. I'm giving you the strategy. And then you go back and tell them this is what we talked about. And they go, okay, we're going to make it happen. And then they come back to me and they say, all right, make it happen. It's me. I'm doing everything. I'm not doing anything. So I position that, right? And I will say this, though, out of all the meetings, out of all the people, out of all the teams, taking time to appreciate each person and learning what they're about and building a bond, maybe not a friendship, but building a bond, understanding a respect level, that goes a long way. Because especially when you're in a fast-paced environment like with Tony's team, you turn to the left or right and you got to hand some off and you got to be like, you got to be quick, you got to be short with it. But when you've built that rapport and the respect, they're like, hey, yeah, thanks, cool, thanks, man. Boom, 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 thanks. Send it back. Okay, cool. Hey, we're going to need to spend, listen, we're in overtime. We're in overtime. I don't know how long it's going to take you, but I'm going to need you to grind until this gets done because the deadline's like midnight or the deadline's tomorrow morning and it's 2 a.m. We got to work overnight. Like, cool. I know the drill. Like, I know what we got to do and I can count on you. And it was nice to have that dream team. It was nice to have that thing. And I remember there was one time with this partner with Tony and I was in a meeting and I looked at everyone. I said, hey, like this is it. We got this. Like there's no reason why we're not going to fail. Like we're all really good. I kind of gave a pep talk that wasn't needed, but I was talking and I was just like, it was just so great. And everyone was so happy. And I remember looking at the entrepreneur. I looked at him and I said, hey, like this is like the Avengers, man. We're the Avengers. We got this. Like it's going to be great. And it was so good. We did so many things. We added so much value to so many people. You know, I look at the people that were just the ones going to the event, tuning in live from all over the world from their homes and like, you know, looking for hope, looking for, you know, validation, looking for success, looking for the secret to break through, to turn their lives around or to save the game, right, for them. And I was just proud of being part of that team, that moment in those time, and proud of talking to everyone and seeing them transform their lives. And I just wish that it wasn't so chaotic behind the scenes to run that. But sometimes it is. You start as a small boat, as a business, and you can make a pivot. You could turn around in 2 seconds and you go the other way. But when you grow so big, like a Tony company or some of these big brands I've worked with, you know, they're a huge ship now. To make the call to make a pivot, it's got to go through the ranks. And by the time it gets up, it's been like a couple weeks. And then they got to think about it and they got to make a pivot. And to shift this, that could take a couple months. It could take a year before that ship can make a turn. And by that time, if you got it too late and what you're trying to do, you're running into stuff, you know, or half the time we start the pivot and the industry changes because we didn't move fast enough and we didn't even get the benefit on that pivot. We didn't even really maximize what we were doing, but now we're on the next thing. And so it's some stuff to think about. And I want to talk about a creative breakthrough. What is a creative breakthrough? What is a breakthrough for you? A breakthrough is like literally where you go outside your comfort zone, or you think about something that you want to do and you're just like, I have to get this done. And you figure out how to get it done, and you get it done way better than what you imagine would be. And you figure it out and boom, that's a breakthrough, right? And one of the game-changing moments for me was when I realized that virtual didn't have to mean boring, even from behind a little screen, whether it's your phone, their laptops, a television or computer monitor. We were making life-changing events. And that's because I would maximize massive value in an industry in a time when the world was down. That is my takeaway from that experience. I hope that you listen to this, no matter where you're at in your career, your business, and you don't get to that breaking point. I want you to know that you don't actually have to you don't have to make your company chaotic. You don't have to make your company political. You don't have to make your company a mess to send your message. You can literally build your company in a way that has all the energy you need, all the strategy you need, all the time you need, all the right people and the respect and the caring and the appreciation. And it could be fun. And you know how I know this? Because I took everything I learned and I'd meet these other businesses that were chaotic and I'd straighten them out. Like, listen, you don't need to do that. Let me stop you right here. Wow, like saving so much time, less meetings, more respect. Everyone's better. Everyone's feeling good. People got vacations, and they're making more money. Like, this is incredible. All because of things that I learned, earned, and developed, my sacrifices, right? My pain points, my successes, my triumphs, my victories. And I give that to them, whoever's that person, that company, that brand, that entrepreneur that wants it. What I learned is that creativity thrives under pressure. No matter how you look at it, my creativity, it wouldn't have been as good as it was if I wasn't put under pressure. So pressure is okay, right? Those high stakes moments, they will push you to innovate and think beyond obvious. Remember, I got toasty with Tony. I didn't get burnout, I got toasty. Burnout is coming from doing the same thing over and over again and never getting a break. Toasty is where you're doing a lot of different things that are next level. And you don't really have time to look at the reward from that. You just know you hit a success, you got to move on to the next. Like, that's toasty. So it keeps you on your toes and you keep moving forward and it's always new. That was the good thing, right? And I want to give you some actionable advice. If you're ever in a high-stakes situation, ask yourself, how can I turn this challenge into an opportunity to create something unforgettable? Let me repeat that again. How can I turn this challenge into an opportunity to create something unforgettable? That mindset can change everything for you and everything for the company. Every time I was given an impossible task by Tony or one of his partners, I was like, what can I do to really make this opportunity unforgettable? And I did every time. Impossible task. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm going to do this, and this. I'm going to run it through. And I had to hit a home run. I couldn't fail. So that pressure really gave me the just laser focus to deliver the content I was creating or the opportunity or the strategy and bring the right people together and suggest the right people to work with in the events. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And so now this is where I would love to get your feedback. I want to give you a little call to action. I'd love to hear about a time when you had to perform creatively under pressure. Like, what did you do? What did you learn from it? How did you succeed? Did you fail or did you succeed? I want you to share that with me in the comments below this podcast, or go to thepodcastrough.com, click on contact me and send me the message. I would love to check it out and read it. And I'll read it on the show. If you want me to, I could read it on the show. I'd love to read your feedback. What was your breakthrough? Like, what was something that you did that gave you a breakthrough in your life? I've had so much success in my career, all because of what? If you listen to episode 170, and there's many other ones too where I talk about this. So go back and binge listen to all my episodes, okay? The vehicle is the thing, right? Like, what are you gonna do that allows you to go all over the place and get creative and create opportunities? For me, the vehicle was ZT Films. Remember, it was the vlogs. It's this podcast. The vehicle allows me to go where I can't go in other areas. You can't just have one business and think you can go everywhere. Maybe with the brand, maybe. It doesn't mesh with everybody. But you want to create something, a vehicle. So for me, it was the vlogs. Allows me to capture moments, practice my editing, look back on times, vlog someone's stuff and put them in a video and they get excited and they know someone who knows someone who's like, hey, I need a video. And then we create this event and we do a video or we do a commercial or we do a live stream, right? And then that turns into all the way up the chart, right? Like, sky's the limit. Like, I've worked, my network is so huge. But it's not huge. Like, it's not that I know everybody. My network is huge, but with the right people. Like, I'd be at big concerts, right? Doing production. And like, maybe I'm just looking like the videographer. That's cool. I'm just the videographer. I don't care. I'm just a videographer. I'm filming some stuff on my stage, but it's a project for me. It's part of my portfolio. I'm like, I love it. But the people I met behind the scenes that don't even have social media accounts, that run the game, that run the show, that run the industry, like those are my people. Remember, creativity is at its best when you're pushed beyond your comfort zone. Those high stakes moments aren't just challenges. They're opportunities to elevate your craft and redefine what is possible. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Podcast in Rough. I'm Zebulon Thomas. Take care. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a star rating and a review. It would help us reach more people and get them to learn about the Podcast in the Rough. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it.